The waiting area at Gate 14 smelled like stale coffee and recycled air. Liam checked his phone for the 20th time. 10 minutes. The plane was 10 minutes from landing, and his heart had been pounding for the last hour. He adjusted his collar, ran a hand through his hair, and tried to steady his breathing. Her name was Chloe. At least, that was the name on the dating app. She was a graphic designer from Portland. Loved hiking, old movies, and claimed she made a mean lasagna. They had matched 3 months ago, and from their first conversation, something clicked. She was warm. Easy to talk to. Safe. After 2 months of late-night calls and messages that stretched into hundreds, Liam had convinced himself this was it. This was the woman who would finally make him believe in love again. The one who would erase the past. He had booked her flight himself. Insisted she come visit. Wanted to do something grand, something that showed he was serious. The ticket was first class. The restaurant reservations were made. He had even bought a new jacket, the one his sister said made him look like a man who had his life together. The irony of that phrase wasn't lost on him. 5 years ago, Liam had stood at an altar in a vineyard, wearing a tailored suit that cost more than his first car, and watched 300 guests wait for a wedding that would never happen. He had watched Elena walk down the aisle in a dress that looked like it was made of clouds, her dark hair swept back, her eyes locked on his with a trust so absolute it terrified him. And when the priest asked who gave this woman to be married, Liam had turned and walked out the side door. He didn't run. He walked. Calmly. Deliberately. Through the kitchen, past the caterers who stared with trays of champagne frozen in their hands, out the back exit, and into the parking lot where his car waited. He drove 47 miles before he stopped. Before he allowed himself to feel anything. He never explained why. He never called. He changed his number, sold his apartment, and moved 3 states away. The cowardice of it still sat in his chest like a stone. But that was then. This was now. Chloe was different. Chloe didn't know about Elena. Didn't know about the wedding. Didn't know about the version of himself he had tried so hard to bury. With Chloe, he could start over. Be someone new. The arrival's board flickered. Landed. Liam stood, his palms sweating. He positioned himself near the barrier where passengers emerged, holding a small sign that simply said, "Welcome." No name. Just a word. Chloe had said she'd know him from his photos. She said she'd recognize his eyes. The first passengers began trickling through the automatic doors. A family with tired children. A businessman on his phone. 2 elderly women laughing about something. Liam scanned each face, his pulse quickening with every new person. Then he saw her. But it wasn't Chloe. The woman who stepped through those doors was tall and composed, walking with the kind of quiet authority that made people unconsciously move out of her way. She wore a simple grey coat, her dark hair shorter than he remembered, cut just above her shoulders. Her face was thinner, sharper, the softness replaced by something steelier. Elena. Liam's hand went numb. The sign slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. For a moment, the world compressed into a single point of focus. Her face, moving toward him through the crowd like a ghost made flesh. She stopped 10 feet away. Close enough that he could see the small scar near her eyebrow, the one she got falling off a horse when she was 12. Close enough that he could see her eyes, the same deep brown that had looked at him with such love on that vineyard morning. But those eyes weren't looking at him with love now. "Hello, Liam." Her voice was calm. Controlled. It held none of the tremor he might have expected. None of the tears. Just a quiet, terrifying steadiness. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed entirely. Elena reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen once, then turned it to face him. On it was her dating profile. The one he had matched with. The one with Chloe's photos, Chloe's job, Chloe's hobbies. But the messages. The late-night calls. The woman who laughed at his jokes and asked about his day and made him feel like he mattered. That voice had been Elena's. "I needed you to see me," she said, lowering the phone. "I needed to look at your face when you did." Liam's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The noise of the airport rushed back in, announcements, luggage wheels, distant conversations, but it all felt muffled, like hearing it from underwater. How? he finally managed. Why? Elena tilted her head slightly, studying him the way she might study a painting she didn't quite understand. You think you're the only one who never moved on? You think I didn't spend 5 years replaying that morning, trying to understand what I did wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Then why? The control in her voice flickered, just for an instant. Why did you leave me standing there? 300 people. My mother. My grandmother. The priest looking at me like I was a fool. And you just disappeared. Liam felt the weight of 5 years pressed down on his shoulders. He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell her about the panic that seized his chest when he saw her walking toward him, so beautiful, so perfect, so far above him. He wanted to tell her about the voice in his head that screamed he would ruin her, that she deserved better, that staying would be the cruelest thing he could do. But standing here, in the harsh fluorescent light of the airport, those excuses felt like what they were, cowardice dressed up as sacrifice. I'm sorry, he whispered. The words felt pathetically small. Elena's jaw tightened. You're sorry. 5 years, and you're sorry. I didn't know how. No. You didn't get to explain then, and you don't get to explain now. She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, the same one she always wore. It hit him like a punch to the chest. I didn't come here for an apology, Liam. I came here because I needed to see if you were real. If the man I loved ever actually existed. Or if I invented him. Elena. You were my person. Her voice cracked, finally, the control breaking like ice giving way. You were the one I trusted. The one I built dreams around. And you vanished without a word. Do you have any idea what that does to someone? To wake up every morning wondering what was real and what was lies. Liam felt tears burning behind his eyes. He blinked them back. It was all real. Every second. That's the worst part. Then why? The question hung between them, raw and bleeding. Before he could answer, a crackling voice echoed through the terminal. Attention passengers. Due to an approaching severe weather system, all departing and arriving flights are temporarily grounded. Please proceed to the nearest information desk for rebooking assistance. The announcement repeated. Around them, travelers groaned and pulled out phones, rushing toward counters. The terminal began to fill with anxious energy. But Liam and Elena stood frozen, locked in their own storm. Elena looked toward the windows. Outside, the sky had turned an ominous grey-green. Rain began to streak the glass, light at first, then harder. She turned back to him. I suppose we are stuck here. Liam didn't know if she meant the airport or something larger. Both, probably. I'll find us a place to sit, he said quietly. Somewhere quiet. If you'll stay. Elena studied him for a long moment. He could see the war behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to walk away, to finally leave him standing somewhere, to make him feel the abandonment she had felt. But something else held her there. Curiosity, maybe. Or the unfinished business that had driven her to create that fake profile in the first place. One conversation, she said finally. One. And then I decide if I stay or go. Liam nodded, not trusting his voice. They walked together through the chaos of the grounded airport, threading between frustrated travelers and overworked airline staff. Elena followed a step behind him, close enough to feel her presence but far enough to maintain distance. He found a corner near an empty gate, a small seating area tucked away from the main terminals. The lights here were dimmer, the noise muffled. They sat across from each other, a low table between them like neutral territory. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain hammered against the windows, streaks of water distorting the lights on the tarmac below. Elena broke the silence first. Tell me one thing. Just one. Anything. When you walked out that door, did you look back? Liam closed his eyes. He remembered the parking lot, the gravel crunching under his shoes, the sound of his own ragged breathing. He remembered getting in the car, starting the engine, and pulling away. He remembered not looking back. No, he whispered. I didn't. Elena nodded slowly, as if she had always known. That's what I needed to hear. To confirm what I already knew. It wasn't because I didn't love you. Then what was it? Her voice rose for the first time, the calm breaking. What could possibly be worse than leaving me there? What could be so terrible that disappearing was the better option? Liam looked at her, really looked at her. At the strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes, the quiet power she carried without even trying. The same things that had drawn him to her were the things that had terrified him. Because I wasn't good enough for you, he said. The words came out raw, scraped from somewhere deep. Because your family, your future, your whole life, it was all moving forward, and I was going to drag you down. Because loving you meant watching you settle for less than you deserved, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the reason you became smaller. Elena stared at him. The rain hammered harder. That wasn't your choice to make, she said finally. You don't get to decide what I deserve. You don't get to sacrifice yourself on some altar of nobility and call it love. That's not love, Liam. That's fear dressed up in a tuxedo. He had no answer. She was right. She had always been right. Outside, lightning split the sky, followed by a crack of thunder that shook the windows. The terminal lights flickered once, twice, then held. They sat in the dim glow, two people trapped not just by weather, but by history. And somewhere in the silence, something shifted. The first small crack in the wall between them, barely visible, but there. The storm hammered the terminal windows with increasing fury. Rain lashed against the glass in violent waves, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled like approaching drums. The airport had grown quieter around them, not silent, but muffled, as if the weather had wrapped the building in thick wool. Liam sat across from Elena, his hands clasped between his knees, knuckles white. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times over 5 years. Always different. Always worse. In some versions, she screamed at him. In others, she wept. In a few, she simply stared through him like he was already a ghost. He had never imagined this. The calm, the control, the way she sat with her back straight and her eyes fixed on him like she was conducting an interrogation. You said one conversation, Liam began. What do you want to know? Elena considered the question. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, the kind with a leather cover and cream pages. Liam recognized it. He had bought it for her, 3 months before the wedding, at a little stationery shop in San Francisco. She had laughed at the gift, said no one used paper anymore, but she carried it everywhere. She still carried it. I've been keeping a list, she said, opening the notebook. For 5 years. Every question I wished I could ask you. Every time something happened and I wondered what you would say, what you would think, I wrote it down. She flipped through pages filled with handwriting. There are hundreds. Liam's chest tightened. Elena. I'm not going to ask all of them. She closed the notebook but kept it in her lap. I'm going to ask 3. 3 questions, and you answer honestly. No defenses. No excuses. Just the truth. And when you're done, I'll decide what happens next. He nodded. His mouth was dry. Elena looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something beneath the composure, a flicker of the woman he had known, the one who laughed easily and loved fiercely and trusted him with everything. Question 1, she said. The night before the wedding. We were sitting on the balcony of that hotel, remember? The one overlooking the vineyard. We talked for hours. About the future. About children. About growing old together. You held my hand and told me you had never been happier. She paused. Was that true? Liam felt the memory like a physical weight. The warm evening air. The smell of grapes and earth. Elena's head on his shoulder, her hair soft against his cheek. He had meant every word. It was the truest thing I've ever said. Then when did it change? Her voice wavered slightly. When did you wake up the next morning and decide none of it mattered? It never changed. Liam leaned forward, desperate for her to understand. That's the thing I've never been able to explain, even to myself. I loved you just as much that morning. Maybe more. Watching you walk down that aisle, you were so beautiful I couldn't breathe. Then why? The question exploded out of her, raw and sharp. If you loved me, if nothing changed, why did you leave? Lightning illuminated the terminal, casting their faces in harsh white light before plunging them back into dimness. Liam opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. The words stuck in his throat like stones. Because I couldn't breathe, he finally said. Because I looked at you walking toward me, and I saw everything you were, everything you would become, and I saw myself standing next to you like a stain on a wedding dress. Elena's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Your father, Liam continued, the words coming faster now, tumbling out like water through a broken dam. He gave a toast at the rehearsal dinner. Do you remember what he said? He said he was proud of me. He said you were the brightest person he knew, that you had scholarships to 3 graduate schools, that you were going to change the world. Liam's voice cracked, and then he looked at me. He smiled, and he said, and Liam will be there to support her. So, he was being nice. No. Liam shook his head. He was being honest. Everyone was honest. Your mother asked about my career plans. Your grandmother asked if I'd considered going back to school. Your cousins talked about their houses, their investments, their children's private schools. And I sat there with my community college degree and my rental apartment and my job that barely paid the bills, and I realized. He stopped. His hands were shaking. You realized what? I realized they were right. The words came out broken. I was going to hold you back. You were meant for big things, Elena. You still are. And I was just me, standing at an altar, pretending I belonged there. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he expected. You think I didn't know all that? Liam looked up. I knew you didn't have money. I knew your job wasn't glamorous. I knew my family talked too much and asked too many questions. She leaned forward. I also knew you made me laugh until I cried. I knew you listened when I talked. I knew you saw me, not the version everyone else saw, the successful one, the ambitious one, but me. The messy, uncertain, sometimes scared me. And you loved that person. I did. Then why wasn't that enough? The question hung between them, heavy and aching. Why wasn't my love enough to make you stay? Liam felt tears burning behind his eyes. Because I was afraid it wouldn't last. That one day you'd wake up and see what everyone else saw. That you'd realize you settled. That you'd look at me with disappointment, then resentment, then worse. I couldn't survive that. I couldn't watch you stop loving me. So you made sure it never had the chance. Elena's voice was quiet, not angry, just tired. You chose the pain you knew over the pain you feared. I chose to protect you. No. She shook her head firmly. You chose to protect yourself. Don't dress it up as sacrifice, Liam. That's the easy way out. The real sacrifice would have been staying. Being honest about your fears. Letting me decide what I wanted. But you didn't trust me enough for that. He had no answer. She was right. She had always been right. Thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the windows. The terminal lights flickered again, this time staying off for several seconds before struggling back to life. In the darkness, Liam heard Elena's breathing, steady and controlled. Question 2, she said when the lights returned. After you left. After you disappeared. Did you ever wonder about me? Did you ever lie awake at night and think about what I was going through? Liam closed his eyes. Every night. 4 months. 4 years. He had imagined her crying, her family gathering around her, the phone calls that went unanswered, the explanation she had to make to 300 confused guests. He had imagined her hate, her grief, her eventual recovery. He had imagined her moving on, finding someone better, building the life she deserved. Yes, he whispered. Every single day. Then why didn't you call? Why didn't you write? Why didn't you give me anything? For the first time, her composure cracked completely. I spent a year thinking you were dead. A year. I called hospitals. I checked morgues. I hired a private investigator because I couldn't believe the man I loved would just vanish without a word. Do you understand what that does to a person? The tears came then, finally. Not dramatic weeping, just silent tracks running down her cheeks, her jaw tight with the effort of holding back the rest. Liam wanted to reach for her. He didn't dare. I thought you'd hate me, he said. I thought if I called, if I explained, you'd just hear excuses. That you'd scream at me, and I'd deserve it, and it would make everything worse. I thought. You thought. Elena wiped her face with the back of her hand. You thought a lot. You didn't feel. You didn't consider what it would mean to never know. To spend years wondering if any of it was real, if I ever actually knew you at all. I'm sorry. The words felt useless. I know that's not enough. I know it changes nothing. But I'm sorry, Elena. For everything. She looked at him for a long moment. The anger in her eyes warred with something else, something softer, more complicated. Question 3, she said quietly. The last one. Liam waited. If you could go back, if you could stand at that altar again, watching me walk toward you, knowing everything you know now, would you stay? The question hit him like a physical blow. He had asked himself this so many times, in so many variations. The answer had always seemed simple. Yes, of course yes, he would stay and fight and never let her go. But sitting here, 5 years later, looking at the woman he had destroyed and the strength she had built from the wreckage, he wasn't sure anymore. I don't know, he said honestly. Elena blinked. It wasn't the answer she expected. I don't know if I would stay, Liam continued, because I don't know if staying would have been better for you. Look at you. You're stronger than you were. Sharper. More focused. You built something without me. You became someone. He met her eyes. If I had stayed, would you be sitting here like this? Would you have become this version of yourself? You think you leaving made me stronger. I think surviving something hard changes people. Sometimes for the better. Elena considered this. The rain had softened slightly, but the wind still howled against the windows. I spent 2 years broken, she said quietly. 2 years where I couldn't get out of bed some days. Where I cancelled plans and stopped returning calls and let my work slide because I couldn't focus on anything except the hole where you used to be. That wasn't strength. That was survival. I'm sorry. Stop saying that. Her voice sharpened. I don't need your apologies. I need you to understand what you did. Not so you can feel guilty, so you can actually see me. The real me. Not the fantasy you ran from, and not the victim you imagine. Just me. Liam looked at her, really looked. The fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. The way she held herself, more guarded, less open. The intelligence in her gaze, sharper now, tested by fire. I see you, he said. I think I always did. That was the problem. Elena's expression softened, just slightly. Maybe that was always the problem. Another announcement crackled through the terminal. Attention passengers, the severe weather system is expected to continue for several hours. All flights remain grounded. Please remain in the terminal and await further updates. Hours. They were stuck here for hours. Elena looked toward the windows, then back at Liam. I asked my 3 questions. You did. Now I have to decide what happens next. Liam nodded. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay still, to wait, to give her the space he had never given her before. Elena stood, walked to the window, and pressed her palm against the cold glass. Rain streaked around her hand, distorting the lights on the empty tarmac. I spent 5 years building a life where you didn't exist, she said without turning around. I dated. I worked. I traveled. I told myself I was fine. That I had moved on. That you were just a chapter 1 closed. She paused. But I kept the notebook. I kept the questions. And when I saw your face on that dating app, something in me broke open again. Not love. Not hope. Just unfinished business. Liam stayed silent. Elena turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I want to. but I know I'm not ready to walk away yet. She walked back to the chair and sat down, across from him once more. So what now? Liam asked. Elena pulled a small object from her bag, a deck of cards, worn at the edges. She set it on the table between them. Now we wait out the storm. And you tell me about the last 5 years. Everything. The good, the bad, the ordinary. No more hiding. Liam looked at the cards, then at her. Why cards? Elena almost smiled. Not quite, but close. Because we can't just sit here staring at each other. And because I remember you taught me to play poker on our 3rd date. I want to see if you still cheat. The smallest crack of light in the darkness. The cards snapped against each other as Liam shuffled, the sound oddly comforting in the hollow quiet of the abandoned gate. Elena watched his hands, the same hands that had once held hers on countless walks, that had traced patterns on her skin in the dark, that had waved goodbye from her doorstep 1,000 times without ever meaning farewell. He dealt 2 hands. 5 cards each. Poker? She asked. 5-card draw. Like old times. Elena picked up her cards, fanning them carefully. Old times. That's a generous way to describe a relationship that ended with me standing at an altar in a $40,000 dress. Liam flinched. I deserve that. You deserve worse. But her voice lacked venom. It was simply true, and they both knew it. They played in silence for a few minutes. Discard. Draw. Bet with nothing but words. Elena won the first hand. Liam won the second. The storm raged outside, but inside their small corner of the terminal, a fragile truce had settled between them. Tell me about Portland, Elena said, studying her new hand. You moved there after. Seattle first. Then Portland. I couldn't stay in California. Too many memories. And what? She looked up from her cards. And what did you do? Who did you become? I spent 5 years imagining you living some glamorous life, traveling the world, falling in love, being happy. It made it easier to hate you. Liam set his cards down. I worked at a warehouse for 2 years. Lifting boxes. Minimum wage. I lived in a studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and a microwave that sparked every time I used it. Elena's expression flickered. Surprise? Satisfaction. He couldn't tell. Then I got promoted to inventory supervisor. Then assistant manager. I took night classes, business management, accounting, things I never thought I could learn. He picked up his cards again, more to have something to hold than to play. 3 years ago, I started my own small logistics company. Just me and a truck. Now I have 6 employees and a warehouse of my own. You built something. I tried. He met her eyes. I thought if I could become someone worthy, maybe one day I'd have the right to find you. To explain. To ask for forgiveness. Elena set her cards down too. The game was forgotten now. And did you become worthy? The question hung between them. No, Liam said honestly. I don't think that's how it works. I just became less afraid of being small. Something shifted in Elena's eyes. A crack in the wall she had built. Your turn, Liam said quietly. Tell me about you. Elena looked toward the windows. The rain still hammered, but the wind seemed to be easing. For now, they were still trapped. I finished my PhD, she said. 18 months after you left. I almost didn't. There were days I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't write, couldn't think. But my advisor wouldn't let me quit. She showed up at my apartment every morning for 3 weeks until I finally got dressed and came back to campus. She sounds like a good person. She saved my life. Probably literally. Elena picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. After that, I took a research position in Boston, then a teaching job in Chicago, then a fellowship in London. I kept moving, kept running, told myself it was ambition, but really it was just not wanting to stay still long enough to feel anything. Did it work? No. A sad smile touched her lips. You can't outrun yourself. Trust me, I tried. Liam thought about all the miles he had put between himself and that vineyard. All the cities, the apartments, the jobs. And still, here she sat, as real as the rain against the glass. Why the dating app? He asked. Why the fake profile? Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. I wasn't looking for you. I was looking for proof. Proof of what? That I mattered. That what we had meant something. That I wasn't the only one carrying it. She met his eyes. I created that profile 2 years ago. I used my friend's photos because I couldn't bear to use my own. And I just watched. I swiped on people who seemed interesting, had conversations, disappeared. It was a game. A way to feel connected without risking anything. But you found me. I found you. She nodded slowly. Your profile picture was taken at that diner we used to go to. The one with the terrible pancakes and the waitress who called us lovebirds. I knew it was you immediately. Liam remembered that photo. He had taken it himself, sitting in their old booth, trying to smile for the camera. It was the only picture where he looked genuinely happy, and now he knew why, because some part of him had still been hers, even then. I didn't plan to message you, Elena continued. I told myself it was just curiosity. But then I read your bio. Looking for someone who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary. And I thought, that's what we had. That's what you threw away. Why did you finally reach out? Elena's jaw tightened. Because my therapist said I needed closure. Because I was tired of carrying questions with no answers. Because I wanted to see your face when you realized who I was. And now I don't know what I want. Thunder rolled across the sky, closer this time. The lights flickered again, and for a few seconds, they sat in near darkness, only the emergency strips casting pale shadows. When the lights returned, Elena was looking at him differently. Softer. More vulnerable. There's something I never told you, she said quietly. About the wedding. Liam's chest tightened. What? The night before. When we were on the balcony. You talked about being afraid, not in those words, but I could feel it. You kept asking if I was sure, if I really wanted this, if I had any doubts. She paused. I knew you were scared. I just didn't know how scared. I tried to hide it. You did a terrible job. Almost a smile. I almost told you something that night. Something I thought would make you feel better. But I was scared too. Liam waited. I was scared you'd say no. Her voice dropped. Not to the wedding, to something else. So I stayed quiet. And the next morning, you were gone, and I never got the chance. What were you going to tell me? Elena reached into her bag again. Not the notebook this time, but a smaller pouch, worn leather, fastened with a button. She opened it slowly, carefully, and pulled out a photograph. She set it on the table between them. Liam looked at it. His hands started shaking. It was an ultrasound. A small, grainy image of something that looked like a bean but meant everything. I was pregnant, Elena said. 6 weeks. I found out 3 days before the wedding. I was going to tell you on our honeymoon. I had it all planned, a quiet dinner, just the two of us, somewhere beautiful. I was going to show you that picture and watch your face change. Liam couldn't breathe. The image blurred in front of him. I kept it, she continued, her voice steady despite the tears forming in her eyes. The pregnancy. I kept her. She's 4 years old now. Her name is Lily. The world stopped. Liam looked up at Elena, his vision swimming. I have a daughter. You have a daughter. Elena wiped her eyes quickly. She has your eyes. And your stubbornness. And your habit of humming when she's concentrating. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rain continued its assault on the windows. Somewhere in the terminal, a child laughed. Normal life continued outside their bubble of revelation. Why didn't you tell me? Liam's voice was barely a whisper. All those years. Why didn't you find me? Elena's expression hardened, just slightly. Because you left. Because you made it clear you didn't want to be found. Because I was terrified that if you knew, you might come back for the wrong reasons, obligation, guilt, duty. And I couldn't raise a child with a man who only stayed because he had to. I would have. You would have what? She cut him off, not cruelly, but firmly. You would have come back. Married me. Played house? And then what? 6 months later, a year later, would you have looked at me and felt trapped? Would you have left again, only this time taking half of her heart with you? Liam had no answer. Because she was right. That was exactly what might have happened. I couldn't risk it, Elena said softly. I couldn't risk her growing up like me, wondering why she wasn't enough to make someone stay. So I made the choice for both of us. I raised her alone. I gave her my name, my love, my everything. And she's happy, Liam. She's so happy. I want to see her. I know. I want to be her father. I know. Elena's voice cracked. But wanting something doesn't mean you get to have it. Not after what you did. Not without earning it. Liam nodded slowly. The tears were falling freely now, and he didn't bother to wipe them away. Then tell me how. Tell me what I have to do. Elena looked at him for a long moment. The anger was still there, buried beneath layers of hurt and protection. But something else was there too, something that looked almost like hope, fighting to survive against all odds. I don't know yet, she admitted. I didn't plan for this. I didn't plan to tell you at all. But sitting here, watching you play cards like nothing happened, watching you look at me like I still matter, she stopped, composing herself. I don't know what happens next, but I know I don't want to lie to you anymore. Liam reached across the table, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers, feather-light. Thank you, he whispered. For telling me. For giving her life. For being the strong one when I couldn't be. Elena's chin trembled. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. You chose her. Every single day, you chose her. That's not nothing, Elena. That's everything. She pulled her hand back gently, not rejecting him, just creating space. I need time. I need to think. This doesn't change everything overnight. I know. But it changes something. She met his eyes. It changes that you know. That the secret is finally out. Outside, the rain began to ease. The wind died down. In the distance, the first hints of light appeared on the horizon, pale gold pushing through grey. The storm was passing. But inside the terminal, a different kind of storm was just beginning. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, tapping against the windows like hesitant fingers. The terminal lights held steady now, and in the distance, the first sounds of activity returned. Luggage carts, muffled announcements, the slow resurrection of a grounded world. But in their small corner, time seemed suspended. Liam hadn't moved since Elena showed him the photograph. It lay on the table between them, that small grainy image of a child who existed because of him, despite him. His daughter. The word felt foreign in his mind, a language he didn't know how to speak. Can I see more? His voice was hoarse. Elena hesitated, then reached for her phone. She scrolled for a moment, then turned the screen toward him. Lily at 1, covered in birthday cake. Lily at 2, wearing a tutu and holding a wand. Lily at 3, riding a small bicycle with training wheels. Lily at 4, just a few months ago, laughing at something off camera, her face bright with joy. His eyes. Elena had been right. Those were his eyes looking out from that small face. She's beautiful, he whispered. She's exhausting. But Elena's voice held warmth. She wakes at 5 every morning. She refuses to eat vegetables. She asks approximately 400 questions a day, most of them unanswerable. She sounds perfect. She is. Elena took the phone back, but gently, not cruelly. She's the best thing I ever did. The only good thing that came from us. Liam felt the words like a blade. Not because they were meant to hurt, they weren't, but because they were true. He had given Elena nothing but pain, and somehow she had turned it into this. Into life. Into light. I want to know everything, he said. Every detail. Every milestone. Every moment I missed. Elena looked at him for a long moment. The anger was still there, but underneath it, something else was struggling to surface, something that looked almost like compassion. Why? She asked quietly. Why does it matter now? You weren't there. You didn't change diapers or soothe fevers or rock her to sleep when she had nightmares. Those moments belong to me. To us. You can't just claim them because you finally know they exist. I'm not trying to claim them. Liam leaned forward, desperate for her to understand. I'm trying to mourn them. To grieve what I lost. To understand the shape of the hole I carved in my own life. Elena's expression flickered. That's honest. I'm done lying. To you, to myself. I've spent 5 years hiding from the truth, and look where it got me. Sitting in an airport, staring at a picture of a child I'll never know. You could know her. The words came out before Elena seemed to realize she'd spoken them. She looked almost surprised at herself. Liam's heart stopped. What? I didn't say it would be easy. I didn't say I'd make it simple. Elena's voice was careful, measured. But she asks about you. Has for years. She sees other children with fathers, and she wants to know why she doesn't have one. I've told her stories, good ones, about the man I loved before everything broke. She deserves the truth. Eventually. And now? Now I don't know. Elena stood abruptly, walking to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and uncertain against the dark glass. I came here for answers. For closure. I didn't come here to rebuild a family. Liam stayed seated, giving her space. I know. Lily has a good life. A stable life. She has me, and my mother, and friends who love her. She doesn't need. Elena stopped. She doesn't need me. I know. Liam's voice was quiet. But maybe I need her. Is that selfish? Yes. Elena turned to face him. It's incredibly selfish. But that doesn't make it wrong. The words hung between them. Outside, the first rays of sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the wet tarmac. There's something I never told you either, Liam said quietly. Something I should have said that morning. Elena waited. I wasn't just afraid of failing you. I was afraid of failing myself. He stood, moving slowly toward her, stopping several feet away. My father left when I was 6. Did you know that? She nodded slowly. You mentioned it once. Early on. He didn't just leave my mother. He left me. And I spent my whole childhood believing it was because I wasn't enough. That if I had been better, smarter, more worthy, he would have stayed. Liam's voice cracked. And then I stood at that altar, watching you walk toward me, and I realized I was going to become him. I was going to love someone and fail them and leave them broken. It wasn't a fear. It was a certainty. That's not. I know. He cut her off gently. I know now it wasn't fate. It was a choice. But in that moment, it felt like gravity. Like the only possible ending to our story. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard it all night. You thought you were protecting me from yourself. I thought I was saving you from the inevitable. And instead you created exactly what you feared. She took a step toward him. You left. You became him. You proved your own worst fears true. Liam nodded, unable to speak. Elena reached out, and for the first time in 5 years, her hand touched his face. Her palm was warm against his cheek, her fingers gentle. You're not him, she said quietly. You know that, right? You're not your father. I don't know what I am. Then maybe it's time to find out. She dropped her hand, but didn't step away. Not for me. Not for Lily. For yourself. Because if you don't figure out who you are, really are, beneath the fear and the guilt, you'll keep running forever. And one day you'll look back and realize you ran right past everything that mattered. Liam felt tears burning behind his eyes again. When did you get so wise? I had a child. It forces you to grow up. Almost a smile. Also, therapy. Lots of therapy. A sound echoed through the terminal. An announcement, clearer than before. Attention passengers. The weather system has cleared. Flights are now resuming. Please check the monitors for updated departure information. Their bubble was breaking. The real world was seeping back in. Elena looked toward the monitors, then back at Liam. My flight to Chicago is rebooked for 2 hours from now. Mine to Portland leaves in 90 minutes. They stood facing each other, the distance between them smaller than it had been all night but still vast. 2 hours. 90 minutes. The countdown had begun. I don't want this to end here, Liam said honestly. Not like this. Not with so much unsaid. There will always be things unsaid. Elena's voice was sad but steady. That's what happens when you lose 5 years. You don't get them back. But we have now. We have these minutes. He reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it. Tell me about Lily. Tell me everything. Give me something to hold on to until. Until what? He didn't know. Neither did she. Elena nodded slowly. She led him back to the chairs, and they sat closer this time, knees almost touching. Her favorite color is purple, Elena began. She changes her mind about her favorite food weekly, but macaroni and cheese is the constant. She's scared of thunderstorms but refuses to admit it. She sings in the bath. She talks to her stuffed animals like they're real people. She has a temper, that's from you, but she forgives easily. That's from me. Liam listened like each word was water in a desert. He committed every detail to memory, building a picture of a child he had never met but already loved with a ferocity that scared him. She asks about you on her birthday, Elena continued. Every year. She wants to know if you think about her. If you'd like her. If you'd be proud. What do you tell her? That I don't know, but I hope so. Elena met his eyes. Because I do hope so, Liam. Despite everything. I hope you'd be proud of her. I hope you'd love her. Because she's the best of both of us, and she deserves that. She deserves everything. Yes. Elena's voice broke slightly. She does. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the night settling around them. The terminal grew busier as passengers returned to gates, as the machinery of travel ground back to life. Their time was slipping away. There's one more thing, Liam said quietly. Something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone. Elena waited. That morning, when I walked out, I didn't just leave you at the altar. He swallowed hard. I left a note. In our room. I wrote it at 4 a.m, when I couldn't sleep, when I was already planning to run. I told you everything. The fear, the inadequacy, the belief that you deserved better. I poured my whole heart onto that paper. Elena's expression shifted. Confusion. Something else. I never found a note. I know. Liam's voice was barely a whisper. Because I went back for it. I was halfway to my car when I realized what I'd done. Left evidence of my weakness, my shame. So I went back. I snuck through the hotel, found our room, took the note from the dresser where I'd left it. Tears fell freely now. And then I burned it in the parking lot. Watched the only honest thing I'd ever written turn to ash. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need you to know that I tried. In my own broken way, I tried to explain. And when I couldn't face you reading it, when I couldn't bear to know what you'd think of me after, I destroyed it. I destroyed the truth. He looked at her, raw and open. I've been destroying the truth my whole life. I don't want to anymore. Elena stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out her notebook, the one with all her questions, all her pain, all her years of wondering. She opened it to the last page, where the paper was different, older, more worn, like it had been folded and refolded many times. And she showed him. It was a single sheet, torn from a hotel notepad. The handwriting was his. The words were his. The confession, the fear, the love, all his. "I found it in the parking lot," Elena whispered. "A piece must have blown away before you burned the rest. It was under my car when I left the hotel that morning. I almost missed it." Liam couldn't breathe. He stared at the paper, at his own words staring back at him after 5 years. "You had this. The whole time. The whole time." Elena's eyes glistened. "I hated you for leaving. I hated you for not explaining. And then I found this, and I understood, at least a little. It didn't make it better. It didn't heal anything. But it meant I wasn't crazy. It meant what we had was real." Liam reached for the paper with trembling hands. Elena let him take it. He read his own words, written in the dark hours of that terrible morning. The fear, the love, the conviction that he was saving her from himself. It all came flooding back. "I was so wrong," he whispered. "About everything." "Yes." Elena's voice was soft. "You were." The final announcement echoed through the terminal. "Final boarding call for Flight 237 to Chicago. All passengers please proceed to Gate 17. Elena stood. Liam stood with her. They faced each other, inches apart, 5 years of pain and 1 night of truth between them. "I don't know what happens now," Elena said. "I don't know if there's a path forward. But I know I'm not carrying this alone anymore. And that matters. Can I call you? Right. Something." Elena considered. "Give me time. A week. Maybe 2. I need to think about Lily, about what's fair to her, about what I want." She met his eyes. "But I won't disappear. I promise you that." It wasn't everything. It wasn't nearly enough. But it was something. Liam nodded, not trusting his voice. Elena leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek, soft, warm, heartbreakingly familiar. Then she turned and walked toward Gate 17, her grey coat disappearing into the crowd. Liam stood alone, the torn page from a hotel notepad clutched in his hand, watching the woman he had never stopped loving walk away. The sun broke fully through the clouds, flooding the terminal with golden light. And somewhere in Chicago, a little girl with his eyes was waking up to a new day, unaware that her world was about to change. Liam stood at the window long after Elena disappeared from view. The terminal had come alive around him. Families rushing to gates, business people tapping at phones, the constant hum of a world in motion. But he remained frozen, one hand pressed against the cold glass, the other clutching the worn piece of hotel paper that had somehow survived 5 years, a parking lot fire, and the weight of everything left unsaid. He read the words again. "My Elena, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Not because I stopped loving you, God, never that, but because I love you too much to stay. You deserve someone who doesn't wake up terrified every morning that you'll finally realize is not enough. You deserve someone who can stand beside you without feeling like he's stealing your sunlight. I wanted to be that man. I tried. But the fear is louder than hope, and I'm too tired to fight it anymore. Please don't hate me. Please don't waste years wondering what you did wrong. You did everything right. You were perfect. I was the broken one. I'll love you until I die. Liam." He folded the note carefully, reverently, and placed it in his wallet next to the photograph Elena had given him. A small print of Lily on her 4th birthday, cake smeared across her smiling face. His daughter. The words still felt impossible. His flight to Portland boarded in 20 minutes. He should move. Should gather himself. Should figure out how to exist in a world where everything had changed and nothing had been resolved. But his feet wouldn't cooperate. Across the terminal, at Gate 17, passengers filed onto the Chicago flight. Elena would be among them, settling into her seat, staring out the window at the city she was leaving behind. In a few hours, she would walk through her front door and find Lily waiting, and life would resume its normal rhythm. And he would be 3 states away, carrying the weight of everything he'd learned. Liam's phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, expecting a flight reminder or a work email. It was a text from an unknown number. "I found you once. I can find you again. Give me time. E." He stared at the screen. Read it 3 times. 4. She had kept his number all these years. Or found it again. Either way, she had reached out before the plane even left the ground. Liam typed back with trembling fingers. I'll wait. However long it takes. The response came immediately. She has your laugh. I forgot to tell you that. When she really laughs, it's you. Every time. Liam pressed the phone to his chest, eyes closed, breathing through the wave of emotion that threatened to drown him. When he looked up, the terminal seemed different. Softer. The harsh fluorescent lights felt almost warm. The chaos of travelers felt like life, like movement, like possibility. His flight was called again. Final boarding. He walked toward gate 22, but slowly, each step measured. He wasn't running anymore. Not from Elena, not from the truth, not from himself. At the gate, he handed his boarding pass to the attendant. She smiled mechanically and waved him through the jet bridge. He stopped at the entrance. 1 step forward, and he was on the plane to Portland. To his quiet life, his small company, his solitary apartment. Back to the world he had built from the ashes of his cowardice. 1 step back, and he was still in the terminal. Still close to her. Still holding on to something that might already be gone. Sir. The attendant's voice broke through. You need to board now. Liam looked at her. Looked back toward the terminal, toward gate 17, where the Chicago flight was already pulling away from the gate. Too late. Either way, too late. He stepped onto the plane. The flight was smooth. Clear skies after the storm, the clouds below them like a white carpet stretching to the horizon. Liam stared out the window, seeing nothing, thinking everything. He thought about Lily. About the 4 years of birthdays he had missed, the first words he never heard, the skinned knees he never kissed better. He thought about Elena, alone in a hospital room, bringing their daughter into a world where her father had already chosen to be absent. He thought about the note. About how she had kept it all these years. About what that meant. His phone was off, but he kept reaching for it, desperate to see if she had texted again. Stupid. Irrational. But human. 2 hours later, the plane descended into Portland. The city looked small from above, ordinary. Liam had always found comfort in its modesty, a place where no one knew his history, where he could be anyone. Now it just felt like hiding. He collected his bag and walked through the familiar terminal. The same coffee shop where he started every morning. The same exit where he always called his ride. The same life, waiting for him like a faithful dog. But everything was different. He stopped at the exit, bag at his feet, and looked back at the terminal behind him. Planes came and went. People arrived and departed. Lives intersected and separated and sometimes, if you were lucky, intersected again. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, heart hammering. A photo. Lily, sitting at a kitchen table, holding up a crayon drawing. The drawing showed 3 figures, a tall one with long hair, a small one with a crown, and a third figure, slightly apart but still in the frame, drawn in blue. Under the photo, Elena had written, "She asked me tonight if you were a real person or just a story. I told her you were real. She said, then why isn't he here?" I didn't have an answer. Liam stared at the image. At the blue figure. At the space in the drawing where he existed but didn't. He typed back, "What do you want me to say?" The response took longer this time. 3 minutes. 5. He watched the dots appear and disappear, appear and disappear. Then, "I don't want you to say anything. I want you to show up. Not today. Not tomorrow. But eventually. When you're ready to stop running. When you're ready to be real. I can't promise anything. I can't promise forgiveness or a family or a happy ending. But I can promise that if you show up, really show up, I'll be at the door. That's more than you gave me last time." Liam read the words until they blurred. He thought about the altar. About walking away. About 5 years of running disguised as rebuilding. He thought about fear. About how it had ruled his life, dressed up in different costumes. Humility, sacrifice, practicality. But always fear. And he thought about choice. The one thing he had never truly exercised. the one thing still in his hands. He typed, "I'm done running. I don't know how to be the man you deserve or the father Lily needs. But I'm going to learn. Starting now. Tell her about me. Tell her I'm trying. Tell her I love her already, and I haven't even met her. And tell yourself, when you're ready to hear it, that I never stopped loving you." That was the problem. That was always the problem. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. The response came almost immediately. "I know." 3 months later, Liam stood outside a small house in Chicago. It was autumn. Leaves covered the lawn in shades of orange and gold. A child's bicycle lay abandoned near the front steps. Through the window, he could see warm light and movement. Someone cooking, someone laughing, someone living the life he had missed. His hands trembled. His heart raced. The same fear that had driven him from an altar 5 years ago whispered in his ear, "You don't belong here. You'll ruin this. Go back. Run." But he was done running. He walked up the path, Meibu measured and deliberate. He reached the door and raised his hand to knock. Before his knuckles touched the wood, the door swung open. Elena stood there. Older. Softer. Wiser. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, and her hair was longer now, pulled back from her face. She looked at him the way she had always looked at him, like he mattered. Behind her, a small voice called out, "Mommy, who is it?" Elena stepped aside. And there she was, 4 years old, with his eyes and Elena's smile, holding a crayon in one hand and a stuffed rabbit in the other. She stared at him with the unself-conscious curiosity of children, head tilted, evaluating. "Are you the man from the story?" she asked. Liam's throat closed. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Lily considered this for a moment. Then she held up her crayon. "Wanna draw?" Elena met his eyes over their daughter's head. There were tears in them, but she was smiling, really smiling, the way she used to smile at him before everything broke. Liam stepped through the doorway. He didn't know if this was a beginning or an ending. He didn't know if forgiveness was possible, or if a family could be rebuilt from ruins. He didn't know anything except that he was here, finally here, and that was enough for now. The door closed behind him. Inside, the light was warm. Later that night, after Lily was asleep and the house had grown quiet, Liam and Elena sat on the front steps, watching the stars appear one by one. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything. For all of it." Elena was silent for a moment. Then she reached over and took his hand. "I know." "Is that enough?" "Knowing." "No." She squeezed his fingers. "But it's a start." They sat together in the cool autumn air, two people who had lost each other and found their way back, not to where they were, but to somewhere new. Somewhere uncertain. Somewhere real. Above them, a plane passed overhead, lights blinking against the dark sky. Someone else's journey. Someone else's story. This one was just beginning.